James Tierney, founder and CEO of Tierney Education here, answering another student-submitted question here on the YouTube channel. Make sure you like and subscribe so that we can get updates when I answer questions. This question came in from one of my current students asking about the cross-price elasticity of demand. Now, I did a video about different types, so it'll be up here somewhere, so you can go ahead and click that if you're unsure. But if you already kind of know the basics, let's just go through and do this question pretty quickly. They give us some information here, right? They say that the price of hot dogs has risen from $2.80 to $3.80, and that made the demand for hot dogs shift to the left. So the first thing I want to comment on is if I have the price of a good, right? Let's say this is the price, right? This is the price of hot dogs, HD. The price of hot dogs went up, and this led to a lower demand for buns. So again, this is saying price of one good goes up, leads to a decrease in the demand, right? That's what I mean by shifted left of the demand for another one. So what does that tell us? That tells us that these two, by definition, are complements. So we call these complementary or complement goods. The idea is that they go together. So if the price of one goes up, my quantity demanded of that good's going to go down. So that means I have to buy less or I demand less of the other. So we know right away that these are complements if this is happening. Now it's asking us for the cross-price elasticity of demand between hot dogs and hot dog buns. So we have to know the equation. Now recall when you're given prices, quantities, all this stuff, right? We have a linear demand curve. The elasticity is going to be different along that demand curve. So we're going to use what's called the midpoint method or the midpoint formula. Again, I have a video on the midpoint formula. It'll be up here somewhere. So if you want to check that out, it's for just regular price elasticity of demand, but it's the same concept. So I like to say elasticity cross price like EXY. So XY are two different goods. So we would say that is going to equal to the percentage change in the quantity demanded of a good X in response to a percentage change of the price of Y. So what this is telling me, how is my quantity demanded changing with response, so that's what the division, to a change in the price of a different good. In our case, X is going to be the buns, right? Because the hot dog buns over here, this is where we're going to get our quantity changing. And then our Y is going to be the hot dogs, because again, up here, hot dogs, right here, hot dogs has risen. So the hot dogs are going to be changing. Now, as I mentioned, we're going to want to make this the midpoint formula. So for the midpoint formula, we're going to have the difference in quantity demanded for good X over the average or midpoint in the quantity demanded for good X. Divide that whole thing by the difference in the price of good Y divided by the average in the price of good Y. Now, this might not be the way that it's presented to you, but this is what I found is going to be the best way of explaining it to students. Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to find the difference divided by the midpoint or divided by the average, because we only have two numbers. So let's go ahead and fill this in. Once again, if you are confused on midpoint method, I will put a link up here to another video that explains it. It's really important to get this down, especially if you're studying for, maybe a final exam coming up. So where are we finding these differences in quantity demanded? Well, notice we have D1, D2 because we saw, it told us it was leftward shift. And so the initial equilibrium was 9,000. The new equilibrium was 7,000. So that tells us the difference was 2,000 because we're going from, this is very important, the first equilibrium to the next equilibrium. We're not just going straight across, we're going from each equilibrium. 9,000 to 7,000 is 2,000. And in fact, we're going to do a negative 2,000 because it's going to be really important. Now, what's the midpoint of 7,000 and 9,000? The midpoint there is 8,000. That's going to be our numerator. Our denominator is going to be my difference in the price. Well, the price went from $2.80 to $3.80. Well, that's going to be just $1, and it's positive. And then we need to figure out what's the midpoint between these two things, and that's going to be $3.30. $3.30. What's that average? Now, well, you could use a calculator, right? You could use a calculator here. In my mind, I know that this goes up by a full dollar, so halfway is going to be 50 cents, and I can easily add 50 cents to 280 or take 50 cents away from 380. Now we have to do a little bit of simplification. We're just going to make this a little smaller so we have some room. The numerator, right? All these zeros are going to go away. So, and then it's going to be a 1 and a 4. So we have negative 1/4 divided by 1 over 3.3, which is just going to be negative 1/4 times 3.3 over 1. Right, the way I'm doing that is I'm taking, we're looking at a fraction divided by another fraction, so we can just multiply by the reciprocal. Now this is just going to be 3.3 divided by 4, and I'm going to have to plug that into my calculator. And we have to always check 2 decimal places, so it's 2 decimal places. Grabbing my calculator off my desk right now. If I was a good YouTuber, I would have paused the video, but screw it. 3.3 divided by 4, rounded to 2 decimal places, be 0.83. Now we have to double check, right? Remember there's a negative sign here. So I forgot that, so don't forget the negative sign. Negative sign. Because this is very important in cross-price elasticity to have a negative sign or a positive sign. Okay, so that is how we would solve this out, trying to figure out what our cross-price elasticity is. So here we would put negative 0.83. Once again, a lot of questions are asking, multiple things, right? You're trying to find multiple different concepts. Here, you have to be able to read a supply and demand graph, understand the idea of an equilibrium. We have to know what cross-price elasticity of demand actually means, right? We're figuring out that they're complements. You need to know the midpoint method, right? You need to be able to do your algebra, which, that's part of the econ degree, part of the econ classes. Also, we didn't get into this much, but there will be more videos on it. This is a negative sign. We need to keep this when we come to the cross-price elasticity, because if the cross-price elasticity is less than 1, it means that when one goes up, the other goes down, and they are complements. If you have any questions at all about this video or any other videos I have, please just leave it in the comments or send me an email, james@tierneyeducation.com. I really like doing these videos to help people out throughout the world when they're trying to learn more economics. Again, like and subscribe and share this video with someone, and hopefully we'll see you again.